What is up, football fans? This is Danny Austin. This is the Live from the 55 podcast. We are here on Wednesday, August 2nd. You will be listening to this on the morning of Thursday, August 3rd, 2023. Middle of a busy, fun week for the CFL. I'm here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm here in our Myrtle Loop studio, the Nation Network. I've got Ryan Ballantine from 3 Down Nation. We are going to have a big chat, a sort of state of the union, not only of the Calgary Stampeders, but probably a little bit of the CFL in general. But I will also say I think we're going to try to stay focused a little bit on the West Division. I don't know that, though. I haven't talked to him yet. We're going to see where the conversation goes. Lots of different places, lots of interesting storylines in the CFL, including, I got to say, I mean, why would we focus only on the West? Last week here, we had a big conversation about whether has the East closed the gap? Has the East potentially passed the West as sort of the center of power here in the CFL? This is something that I feel like has been talked about in the offseason over and over again for the last couple years and never really materializes. Ultimately, you sort of always have those powerhouses at the top of the West that maintain their place. And it's just a couple of teams have slipped. Obviously, the Edmonton Elks are a complete tire fire disaster. Not a team that any of us are rooting to see fail any more than they already have, but they're bottom of the barrel, bottom feeders. They're the worst team in the league by a long distance. Makes me very sad. I've talked about that before. But then obviously the Calgary Stampeders are 2-5 right now. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are not far ahead of them. I wouldn't necessarily say that looking at the Riders, I think they're in anything better of a position than the Stampeders. They just, honestly, they happen to have won more. So they're 3-4, Stamps are 2-5, Elks are 0-8. And then you look up there in the East, and the Owls are 3-3, the Ticats are 3-4, the Red Blacks are 3-4. I think you can make an argument that there's 4 good teams there in the East. I wouldn't say 4 good teams, but 4 decent teams to sort of 2 really good Western teams in the Lions and Bombers. And the CFL stand out this email, following up on what we talked about on Live from the 55 last week. The East teams have won their last 5 interdivisional games and 8 of the last 10 against the West. So, I mean, that does tell you something. I know that a lot of us are sort of expecting the West Division teams to heat up in the back half of the season. But right now, we're talking about right now, 8 of the last 10, the East has won against the West. Toronto and Ottawa are combined 6-1 against the West this season. I'll introduce a caveat in the middle of this. I don't know if this is good radio, but it does help that the Argos are there. I do think that the Argos are by far the best team. So all of these numbers, when we look at them and try to use them to sort of say, oh, look how good the East is, look how not as good the West is. The fact that the reigning Grey Cup champion, the best team in the league, the Toronto Argonauts are in the East is certainly helping make that argument. I don't know that it's a strong argument without them. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Apparently, the East has only won the division rivalry once in the past 17 years when they went 22-18 in 2015. What was happening in 2015? I got to check the standings here. I should have checked that before, obviously. 2015 CFL season standings. They are up, which I'm sort of surprised by, if I'm being honest with you. Okay. Ottawa was 12-6. Hamilton was 10-8. Toronto was 10-8. Montreal was 6-12. Yeah. And then the Riders were terrible at 3-15, and the Bombers at 5-13. So yeah, okay, there you go. Little rundown of memory lane. I will have to get Ian Busby or someone who remembers 2015. I started covering the Stamps in 2016, so it was Scott Mitchell at the time for the Sun covering the Stamps there. So that is not a time that I know a ton about, but interesting. And of course, wins by Hamilton and Ottawa this week would put the East in a position to cross over in the playoffs, which I can't see happening. At some point, the Stamps or the Riders, they're going to get some games against the Elks. They're going to start racking up some wins. I can't really see. I just can't. I can't see there being a crossover at the end of the season. I still ultimately I love Dustin Crum in Ottawa. I think we did see him, come back down to earth a little bit last weekend against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I mean, I say come back down to earth. They lost 16-12. That was not a great Dustin Crum performance. 13-22 for 158 yards through the air and then 82 yards rushing. So I'm not saying it was a bad game, but the Ticats, obviously with Bo Levi Mitchell going down, sounds like it's not season ending, but at least on the 6th game, you sort of struggle to see them sustaining sustaining a good run, although that defense is legit. But look, if Ottawa beats Saskatchewan, which I think I'd pick Ottawa on, that's August 6th, which I believe is Sunday. Hamilton beating Montreal, I think, after what I saw the Montreal, the way that they played the Stamps on the weekend, I like that Montreal defense, so I would pick Montreal there. But look, it's interesting. The East on the rise, the West. What's happening? Well, I do think that the West is going to sort of be the focus this weekend. I love this BC Winnipeg game. That goes Thursday night. Obviously, the Lions beat the bricks off the Bombers, to be honest, earlier in the season. That led to the floodgates opening a little bit. It led to people like me saying the Bombers are too old. They're slowing down. They've regressed. That doesn't sit well in Winnipeg. I know that they're going to say they don't care. They're focused on the task at hand. It's week to week. It's the next opponent, all the normal cliches. And I respect that. That's what you got to say. But that they want to go out and, prove at home against the Lions, say, hey, no, we're still the team to beat here, guys. We're still the best team in the West. But, the Lions have shown what they do. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the FPP honor roll. I will be perfectly honest with you. I'm trying to pull it up here. I find the entire honor roll system to be utterly FPP. It's not FPP, it's PFF. But this entire honor roll system to be, I think it's hilarious. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. For those of you who don't know, the PFF utilizes extensive review of game footage to provide additional context for every action on the field. Highly trained PFF staff break down every game, player, and play to provide 200 unique data points, which are used to compile player grades. A numerical representation up to 100, a performance at their specific position, which is great. It all sounds great. It's just that somehow it resulted in Dane Evans, who started one game for the Lions, being the offensive player of July. I mean, to each their own. I'm not going to question the PFF system. I know the CFL people are super excited about it. They asked if I was interested in doing a story on it. I said not until you get your everyday stats up. But look, it's great that a quarterback who started one game this season, or one game this month, is the offensive player of the month. I don't have much more to say on that, but look, the Lions are good. That's fine. Look, the two best teams in the West facing off. Anytime that happens, I'm going to be up for it. Argos Stampeders on Friday. Stamps only practiced once this week, so we don't know a ton of what's going on there. I don't report from closed practices, so there's a lot that I sort of won't say about players being in and out. I wish that all of us didn't report from closed practices, but Stamps Argos, like the Argos are the best team. We've already talked about that. They're the best team in the league. They have to fly from Halifax back to Toronto after Saturday's touchdown Atlantic game, and now they're flying back out to Calgary. That's a lot of flying. Stamps also played Sunday, only had one practice this week. So both teams are kind of probably not going to be 100% at their best, but the Stamps desperately need a win. The Argos, all they do is win. So interesting there. Alouettes, Ticats, I don't know. I mean, maybe this will be good, but I don't. Honestly, I'm just going to move on. I don't have much to say about that. Maybe when Ryan Ballantine gets in, he'll talk about it. Beyond that, Red Blacks and Riders in that sort of similar position to the Stamps. You feel like, you start winning a couple of these games if you're the Riders, and you can pull away, create a little bit of distance between yourselves and the Stamps, but they don't have their quarterback situation sorted out with Trevor Harris down. That's a brutal break. But they have Ottawa, Montreal, the Lions. This isn't as easy. None of these are as easy because the East is good again. It's the best thing about the East being good, whether you think they're better or not. It used to be you could sort of, even a couple years ago, even last year, it sort of felt like you could go through the schedule and be like, hey, that's an automatic win. That's an automatic win. You can't do that anymore. More parity in the league. It's good news for all of us. That is something we are going to talk about with Ryan Ballantine. Ryan's been doing a really great job breaking some stuff down for a 3-down nation. It's important. There's less of us than ever covering the league, so having a voice like Ryan's matters. And we had Ian Busby here last week. We talked a lot about where the Stamps are at. Ryan is unabashedly a Stampeders fan, enthusiastic about the team. He will pick them to go undefeated every year. It's a bit of a joke, but I wanted to get his perspective because he does cover it professionally, does do the 3-down thing, but also does bring a little bit of a fan perspective. So I want to talk to him about the various issues that are confronting the Stampeders, as well as what he sees around the league. Because as I said, I think there's parity. I think this is a fascinating time to be a CFL fan. And I also am aware that I've covered this league for 7 years. The way that I am thinking in early August is pretty much never the way I'm thinking in mid-October. So, loss can happen. I think that people thinking, well, write the Stamps off. I think they're crazy. You can write the Elks off. They're 0-8. They're not making the playoffs. We can write them off, unfortunately. Other than that, I think there's a lot of stuff that we still need to see play out. A lot of stuff that I'm interested in to see how it plays out. So let's go to Ryan. But before we do, a little bit of a twist here. We got a new sponsor. I want to talk about Mugs Pub a little bit. Located down 1330 15th Avenue Southwest. That's Beltline. Not that I don't know where it is. I have been for many, many years. Many of my closest friendships were started at Mugs Pub. I have played Wednesday night trivia there. I'm not currently playing, but played for many, many years. Started on one team, abandoned that team. Met my dear friend Anna at Mugs Pub through that. My dear friend Brett, like all sorts of stuff. I love Mugs Pub. That's the fact. I've got plenty of friends play there Wednesday nights and who go there other days. I will say their food is legit. Like they've got beer, they got wine, they got cocktails. Mugs is the real deal. But I am a big fan of what they have on the menu. I used to get a fish and chips. Their pizza is absolutely exceptional. I'm a big fan of Mugs Pub's pizza. You're gonna wanna split it with someone. It's not really a single person pizza in my opinion, but we're big fans of Mugs Pub. I don't know what else to say beyond it. It is truly Wednesday night is the best trivia night in the city. Is a great spot to watch sports. To be honest, watch the Stampeders, watch the rest of your CFL games. But you feel the community when you're at Mugs. So we are so pleased that they want to be part of our community, and we're thrilled to have them as a sponsor. So let them know we sent you here from Live from the 55. I will be there this weekend, probably devouring one of their pizzas. Anyways, here's Ryan Ballantine. Let's go. All right, Ryan, I already did your introduction. I talked about how you are with 3 Down Nation doing vital work, breaking down this interesting season. Part of what I love about you is that you are able to balance that sort of fan perspective because you are a hardcore with honestly like being pretty real about the team. So I checked it. I have asked Ian Busby. I've asked several sort of people over the last couple of weeks, where are you at with this team? And I've generally gotten the answer has been they're gonna turn it around. Everyone is feeling like they're gonna turn it around. It's just not happening. I asked Kadeem Carey yesterday. He was like, look, man, like some teams get hot late. This hasn't been our time. I understand that. I also am now, since weirdly Sunday's game against Montreal, hearing a lot more pessimism.
Pessimism.
Thank you.
You got it.
Where are you at? That was a long way of asking. Where are you at with the 2-5 Stampeders team heading into August?
Do I think it's possible that they fall to 2-9? Yes. I think it's possible they fall to 2-9. Do I think they won't make the playoffs? No. I think they still make the playoffs. I think if you look at the next 4 games, you've got Toronto twice, Winnipeg and BC, I believe, before the doubleheader against Labor Day. Edmonton's not going to come close to the playoffs. Saskatchewan's not going to come close to the playoffs with Mason Fine at quarterback or Jake Dole. Like they're not coming close.
I love you. Do the same thing I do. You do get Jake Dole.
Dole something.
Yeah.
Jake Dolega. Jake Dole.
I think it's Dolegala, but yeah.
Yeah. It's not Jared Dagey. He's in Edmonton. Or Seth Dagey, whichever Dagey's still in Edmonton. But Edmonton and Saskatchewan aren't coming close. Hamilton just lost Bo for another 6 weeks. So are they going to win any games? No. So do you have to be the 6th best team or the best of the bad 4 and make the playoffs? Yes. Did they win the Grey Cup at 8-10? Yes, they did. Is it possible that this team could put everything together and be as good as possible and still come away with a championship this season? It's possible. And I still think that's still possible, even at 2-9 heading into Labor Day.
I largely agree with you. I honestly, to be honest, so they have Toronto, BC, and Vancouver. Then they have Winnipeg back home, and then Toronto and Toronto. I actually, to be honest, this sounds crazy given sort of the opposite directions that the Argos and Stamps seem to be going. I think that this weekend is their best shot. I really do think that Toronto always plays badly in Calgary. They had to fly from Halifax to Toronto to Calgary. They also have a short week. There's just reasons why I don't think
it's their fourth road game in a row.
Yes. When you talk about the playoffs, and I'm bouncing here, and I'm trying to do a better job of staying on one subject, but I kind of have to here. The CFL sent out their CFL this week. Wins by Hamilton and Ottawa this week would put the East in a position to cross over to the play, like to be the crossover team. So we are not. It's not just Saskatchewan who they have to worry about beating.
No, I agree. I agree. But a win by Hamilton, but the Hamilton wins have come with Bo at the helm. I mean, I guess they won one game when he was injured, but they're not good. I'm not worried about Hamilton crossing over to beat ahead of Calgary.
Hamilton's the one who just feels like they're definitely going to drop off. And then at the same time, for all of the talk about Ottawa, I said this in the intro, like Ottawa was not good against the Ticats.
Well, but Ottawa, you're not worried about Ottawa if Hamilton drops off because Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto make the playoffs in the East. So you only have to worry about one team out east, and that'll be Hamilton. You have to worry about Saskatchewan. You have to worry about Edmonton. And neither of those teams, I would take the over on Calgary for Saskatchewan and Edmonton the rest of the way, regardless of the fact that I do think it's a very real possibility that this team is 2-9 headed into Labor Day. And I still think that they could make the playoffs in the West.
Yeah, I mean, they will win both Labor Day games, which would bring them to 4-9, which that helps.
Yep.
Do they have a third against Edmonton? I haven't looked at the schedule.
They don't have a third against Edmonton, but they do have a season series against Saskatchewan. They have a third one against Saskatchewan, and that one will be the season series because they only play 3. And that may be the game that decides who makes the playoffs in the West.
It's a weird schedule.
It's really it is. Because
they have the 2 bye weeks after Labor Day, they just actually don't have that many games this fall. Like I'm looking at it. They have Montreal at home, Hamilton and Hamilton, Sask at home, which is, as you were saying, that's the season series game. That's a huge game. And then they're at Vancouver, and then Winnipeg's here. Like that's wild to me, to be honest.
But I think this team could. I think a team in the West could make the playoffs with 6 wins.
Yep.
And so, can Calgary be 6-12?
Yes.
And I think they could. I think they absolutely can get to 6-12, and I think that might be enough to make the playoffs in the West.
I mean, it doesn't even matter who they play; they just always are within. Like, it always comes down to the last play of the game.
Right.
They're just not converting on those last plays.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you look at this team that's now 2-5. All of their losses except BC and Winnipeg. So 3 of their 5 losses are within 1 score. I mean, you got 2 overtime losses, and you have a loss last week there where you lose by 4, and you had the ball in the red zone twice in the last 5 minutes.
Was Sunday's loss to the Alouettes the most discouraging of the year?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah. I think because it's the same mistakes that killed them. A pick 6. Right? That's your difference. That pick 6 is your difference. The defense held the team across from them to 5 field goals.
Yep.
And that should be more than enough to win, especially when you score 5 field goals of your own. You know?
Special teams didn't allow a big return as far as I remember.
No, they didn't.
And Tommy Lewis had a big one. So they won special teams.
Big returns. Yeah, they got big returns. I think they won in almost every phase, but the pick 6 was a killer. And then the other interception in the red zone towards the end of the game, which I think, honestly, that's a ball. If you go back to Bo Levi Mitchell, even struggling Bo Levi Mitchell as he was, that's a ball Bo throws away. That's not a ball Bo throws for a pick. running across his body, throwing across into triple coverage. That's not a throw Bo makes. And then you don't give the ball away. Yes, you're on third down now. The drop from Tommy Lee Lewis, I mean, as good as he's been in specials, that drop where he's ahead of the marker to give them a first down inside the 10, and now it's third down and you have to throw a panic ball into the end zone. I mean, that's a massive mistake.
The illegal participation penalty on Odells Dukes, which effectively killed a drive. There were at least two or three
back-to-back too many men in the huddle time count that took them from the 9 to the 19. You know, exactly. It's the mistakes that they're making. Great teams get to make mistakes. Good teams don't. Mm-hmm. And I think the Stampeders are a good team that have made mistakes over and over and over again that have cost them wins that they should have had.
Does that, and I mean, this is something that is more a question that I would try to ask a coach, but do confident teams make those mistakes? Like, is this a little bit,
no,
this team does not have the confidence and just isn't locked in enough, and they're worried about the little things, and that's causing these other mistakes?
Well, and Dave said that himself. Dave said that himself. He said, good teams make big plays. Good teams make good plays. And he said, and right now, we're so worried about everything that we're not making good plays, and that allows us to build the confidence to make good plays. There's just something there, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's something in the room that's got these guys. In hockey, you'd say they're squeezing the stick. Yeah. That's not really a euphemism that I know translates immediately to football, but these guys are gripping the football or whatever it is, or they're just thinking too hard. They're not playing.
And the only area, like the only thing I'd push back on with that a little bit is when you were in Florida, we had this, you dialed in, and I super appreciated that. And we talked about at the time, special teams coverage, just allowing touchdowns basically every game. And you made the point, and I mean, it's a point I'd made as well, but we both sort of made the point that as long as they weren't allowing touchdowns, they looked great. Like, they were almost giving up no yards unless they made the big mistake. And my thing is, I mean, I'm including the Ottawa game in this, but I didn't see the big plays against Montreal. I didn't see those, those big deep balls that just sort of broke the game open. But I did against Ottawa. It was like they looked good unless they were shooting themselves in the foot, and that's what I find to be like frustrating. And I'm trying to get a read, and I do think the confidence thing goes a long way towards explaining it, because 90. I mean, I don't know that I have the confidence constantly of them putting together long drives, but I feel like this team is absolutely. They've shown that they're capable of hitting you where it hurts. It's just they also do it to themselves. Like it's almost like, okay, cut out the mistakes, and I think this team's flying. I do think that the difference between this team probably being 4-3, not 5-2, but like 4-3 versus 2-5 is kind of is
just razor thin
mistakes. Yeah, it's largely, unfortunately, like it feels like they've done it to themselves. Like, Jake knows not to throw that pick six ball. Jake knows not to throw that ball.
Think that's there. You're not worried about confidence. You're not worried about the long run. You're even looking at this next stretch and saying, yeah, it's a tough stretch, but maybe they get a win in there somewhere. I still think that this team is capable of beating Winnipeg and BC. I think this team is capable of beating Toronto. I think having Corey Mace as the defensive coordinator in a system that they're very familiar with, and this is obviously the most incestuous of the matchups within the CFL right now, because this is a team of Stampeder coaches versus former Stampeder coaches, Stampeder players versus former Stampeder players. Chad Kelly being Chad Kelly being the differentiator there. But I think it's very possible that Calgary comes out and offers Toronto a very competitive game. They've offered everyone competitive games. Like, even that Bombers game, which is the other one that sticks out, until the fourth quarter. Yes.
Where the Bombers offense just stayed on the field for the entire time. Like, the Stamps were in that game. I'm going to ask you a quick on this just came up. I've got Twitter up in front of me. If you are the Stampeders, is this a move you are looking to make? The Argos announced today the release of American wide receiver Markeith Ambles. Former Stampeder. Play here for a little while.
No.
No.
I think Markeith Ambles is a good receiver. I don't Yeah, I wouldn't take anything away from him in that way. I think maybe
Market
I think
Daniels,
it's
if
too
he
late.
is your
I think
third
it's too late.
receiver, you're good, right? Like if
You know,
he's your
I
third
think if
option.
it's on Monday, maybe I do sign him just for the Oppo research.
Okay.
I think if it's on Monday, maybe I do sign him just to get him in the building and break down Toronto's offensive scheme for defensive coaches. I think maybe, you know, and maybe that's there. But I don't know that you're really suffering an American receiver now that you've brought back Mark and Michelle and that Tommy Lee Lewis is getting into games. Ambles is a good slot back, but I think you've got Clark Barnes, who's performed beyond expectations, far beyond expectations.
I don't understand why he is a target always on their final drive of the game. Like I feel like potentially go to Reggie or Mark.
Well, because he's the guy that's making he's making catches at or better a rate than the other guys are.
Don't know that that's how I'd be drawing it up on those final.
No, maybe not. Maybe not. But I think at the same time, defenses are going to be covering Mark and Michelle more than they're covering Clark Barnes. Yeah. They're going to be covering Reggie more than they're covering Clark Barnes. So is Clark Barnes getting favorable coverage? Yeah. And I don't know that he's disappointed me enough. I used to grumble about Anthony.
I'm not saying Clark Barnes has been disappointing.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I used to grumble about Anthony Parker because I felt like in crunch time he dropped the ball a lot. I don't feel that way about Clark Barnes. That's not the way that I feel about Clark Barnes after watching him play. And I think he's I think he's going to be the guy that everybody regrets passing on in those first 2 rounds in the CFL draft.
Right now, having done little to no research on who the other options are,
could be rookie of the year.
100%. He'd be he's definitely the Stamps rookie of the year. When I am in no way taking away from Clark Barnes. There have been a couple times where I've been like, it's odd that the ball went his way at the pivotal point of the game. You normally want it in your best player's hands. At the same time, I did not check to see how triple covered Reggie Begelton was in those plays.
Right.
I fully understand that. And the Stamps on their final drive on Sunday tried to go deep on 2 consecutive plays, which I was a little bit surprised by. And those are actually things where this is just me calling out myself for my own hypocrisy. Those are plays where I'm like, why not just go underneath to Clark Barnes and get 8 yards and extend?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm full of it a little bit. But you think they got a shot against the Argos?
Look, any given team, any given day, sure. Am I taking the under on the spread? Am I taking the Stamps to cover? Yes, I'm taking the Stamps to cover. The Argos have been so good, but at the same, I think they had the game against Ottawa, I think it was, or maybe Montreal, where it was a lot closer than everybody expected it to be on the Toronto schedule. So, I mean, it's possible that the road, the wear and tear, everything, coming fresh out of the locker room, I think Toronto beats Calgary right now. If they're 100% coming out of the locker room, they beat Calgary. If a lot of these questionables on the Stampeders injury report today become outs, I like their chances a lot less than I like them right now.
Yeah, so I do want to talk other CFL things, but you brought up the injury report, and it's a good thing. Kadeem Carey, questionable. I expect Kadeem Carey to play. I'll be straight up with you. We're recording this on Wednesday. That all could change, but I feel pretty confident that he's going to be in there. Having spoken with him and having him, he didn't give me any indication that he wasn't playing, said he was excited. Aaron Crawford, questionable. I don't know how much people want us to talk about the long snapper.
Well, they signed another long snapper, and not for nothing, long snapper is a very underrated position.
I know. I love, man, I'm intending on having Chevy on here. I am not talking in any way badly about long. I feel like I keep accidentally saying offensive things about Clark Barnes.
Oh, but you're right. You're right. I don't think anybody's looking at the long snapper, but they did sign another one today.
They did.
So that's
they brought him in.
Indication there, and Crawford's in trouble.
A 30-year-old. Well, what Dickinson literally said to us this afternoon was, he was like, "We need someone."
Right.
If Aaron can't go, he's like, it's a muscle pull. He's played through muscle pulls before, but if he can't, we do need someone who can long snap the ball. So Odells Dukes, questionable with the rib thing. Again, they've only got 1 practice this week. It was a closed practice. I am not at liberty to report on anything that I saw. So I'm just not going to say anything on that. But
Right.
Dukes has been a really important. Honestly, I think he's a guy. He's one of the guys who I would say lived up to expectations so far this season. Like a big.
Yeah, I would say Odells Dukes is another reason why you don't need Markeith Ambles.
Yes.
I mean, they chose between Ambles and Odells Dukes before, and they made their choice. They chose out Odells Dukes.
Is that what happened?
I mean, they were both on the team at the same time. One guy's not here anymore, and the other guy is.
No. Ambles
Odells Dukes was around when Ambles was here.
Odells Dukes joined last year. Ambles left for the Argos.
I think Odells Dukes was practice roster the year before that.
I wish there was a way to check that. You know what? You're not either way. The point is last year. I mean, last year they had Kamara, they had Reggie. I mean, bizarre.
Right.
Colin Huntrack, questionable. Cam Judge, questionable. I'm not commenting on that right now. Diedrich Mills.
Twitter has comments that I won't make either.
Diedrich Mills, illness, that consistent with what Dave told us. So, I think that they would like to have Kadeem and Diedrich back, like in there, because Diedrich or Kadeem is coming off a 6 weeks injury. You probably don't want to have him have too much of a workload.
Right.
But the reality is it's not going to matter if the Argos get ahead early because you're not going to be running the ball. So,
that's another thing entirely. But
yes, Cole Tucker out. Perry Young, that's questionable with a head thing, so who knows? But yeah, it's they're banged up. They got 13 players on the 6-game injured list. This is not an ideal situation. As you said, it's a puncher's chance. You sort of feel like, all right, they can do it. I see no indication that they are any better or worse against the best teams versus the worst teams in the league. It's next week against the Lions where I'm a little bit worried about what happens. I think in Vancouver, that Lions team, that D line has been good, and I didn't love what I saw from the O line. Now, how do you feel about? Like, honestly, I laughed so hard when I saw that of all the players who played in the CFL in July, the Pro Football Focus player grades determined that Dane Evans, who started one game, was the offensive player who deserved recognition. I mean, just shout out Dane Evans, man. Like, just a round of applause for Dane.
Just look, I find this Pro Football Focus thing very interesting.
I think. Are you covering your mic? Can you just check that real quick? You just.
Oh, sorry. I think I might have turned away a little bit. This mic is very directionally sensitive. I think that the Pro Football Focus grades are an interesting wrinkle to be adding to the CFL stat picture. And I think we also are focusing on them a lot more because we don't know historically whatever happened before. I read an obviously AI generated article yesterday that was so full of errors. I could only ascribe it to the fact that they were looking at the current CFL stat website. It said that the Alouettes had been playing since 1996, but were also entering their second season. Which was hilarious to me.
Robots are not going to take our jobs.
No, I'm so glad that you and I are human beings, and I'm not talking to a podcast GPT CFL site. But I think when you look at the Pro Football Focus, could he have got the highest grade of any player in the month? Sure, he could have. It's entirely possible. I mean, Rene Paredes, who, by the way, kicked 3 50-plus yard field goals in his 5-for-5 day, scored all of his team points. He got a grade of 85. His grade was 85 as a kicker out of 100. I'm not sure what more Rene Paredes could do to improve his grade than kick 5-for-5, including 3 from 50-plus, and score all of his team's points. What makes it a 100-point day for a kicker? I don't understand the Pro Football Focus methodology, but I do think it's still good for the CFL that they're publishing these grades because 100%. It makes football nerds in other countries go, oh, what's the CFL? And maybe turn it on. And that's the only thing I find of value in this process.
Like, I have no anger towards these grades. Like, I can't tell you the way that I literally was like, huh, Dane Evans, and like laughed. Like, I'm not mad about it. I'm not trying to pick a fight. And I guess Dane Evans, I mean, he played most of a second game. But like,
is anybody playing more than one game at quarterback anymore other than Jake Mayer, though?
That's true.
There's Jake Mayer, there's Zach Caleros, and nobody else plays more than one game at quarterback a month anymore.
It is objectively absurd that Dane Evans had the best month of any offensive player in the CFL. It's like, it's just wrong. And there's one guy who gets so mad at me on Twitter anytime I bring it up, to the point where, like, I want to know his deal. Like, I want to know what's up with him. I want to hang out.
Oh, excuse me.
But like he again, they're like QB Dane Evans, a little slash BC Lions 3-0 in July, 6-1 overall. They don't even, like, next to him give him his stats, really. Like, they are so aware that it's crazy. And this is not that big a deal. Like, this, I don't think this really hurts anybody.
No.
And it's going to lead to a follow-up question a bit. Like, who cares that Dane Evans was absurdly awarded for starting one game? But it is like, it's the most CFL thing possible. We couldn't just use PFF as like a way to educate fans. It has to be central to the way we evaluate players and make them stars, which I don't think is what its purpose is. I think its purpose is for, like, coaching to be like, oh yeah, we're grading how guys do their job.
It's a move towards an analytics culture that I don't know that they're ready for.
I mean, why? Because they have no stats online and you can't actually compare any historical data from one season to another.
There's that. There's that.
It's a little thing.
But I mean, I don't know enough about the methodology. But I think that's on Pro Football Focus to explain their methodology. Tell me why this guy got this grade. Walk me through, put out a YouTube video and say, this is why this player's got this grade. This is specifically what we're looking for when we're grading plays. And this is why these players got these grades. And I'm all for it. I want to know
some of that stuff. Like, there's a podcast that, again, this random guy on Twitter. Do I have to say X? Do I say X now?
Oh God, no.
No, we're gonna stick with Twitter.
Look, I'm not in a lot of places in my life. I will not dead name something. This is one where I will stick to this name forever and ever. Amen. It's always going to be Twitter, and it's always going to be that I tweeted something. And hopefully someday some benevolent billionaire will buy the site and restore it to its former glory of cesspool and hatred. But at least it wasn't dumb too.
I've said this before, but, like, I'm not going anywhere. Like,
no.
I don't like the direction the site's going. I don't like Elon Musk. I don't like anything. It's like, I'm damn near 40 years old. I'm not joining Threads. Like,
no, I'm on Threads. You can find me on Threads. So
I'm
that
sure
I can
you are.
say I was a day one adopter of Threads. But the next thread I post will be the day after Twitter dies.
Exactly. I'm not. And, like, good on anyone who wants to go try out other social media.
Yeah.
I'm on
all of them. I've got Post, I've got Blue Sky, I've got
I'm not the second I'm like danny.austin.bluesky@.org. I'm like, nah, man, it's too much. I need a username. Okay. The PFF thing, all I was gonna say is, like, yes, they actually, like, we could figure this out, right? Like, we could, like, go watch, and I fully will. It doesn't do my job any good. Like, this is something the CFL is pushing. I don't need the PFF player grades, like, to be better at writing about the Calgary Stampeders on a closed practice day. It doesn't do me any good. However, like, again, all for it. Bring it in. I'm not actually criticizing. It's hilarious, but we're not. It's clearly being misused a little bit in terms of this honor roll system, in my opinion, but I don't care. It's funny. I will also quickly note, just to cover my butt, trying not to swear on the show. Like, I was offered an interview with a PFF or, like, employee, like, to help, like, explain some of it and stuff, and I declined because until we have actual stats online, I just don't I'm not like interested in pushing this agenda of PFF when the basic stuff that I like, if the core competencies aren't being taken care of, I'm not going to go rah, rah, rah. Look at this new thing. Tell me how many receiving yards a guy has,
Yeah, I would love to know things like receiving targets versus completions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stat that exists, and I would like to be able to search that at any time. And it just, it's such a failure of the league. And I know there are people who tweet me when I talk about this, and they're like, nobody cares. I'm like, yes, people care.
100%.
And I think people have just dismissed the idea that they need to look now, and gotten used to the idea that the CFL doesn't, a professional sports league can't put their stats on their website. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And people should be angry about it, and we are angry about it.
All the time.
Yeah. And like I will honestly, I try to make a point of mentioning it in every article I write and talking about it on every podcast, because it's obscene, and this league is better than that. Like that's
Rene Paredes is over 2,000 points. Prove it.
Yep.
Show me on your website, not somebody else's who I have to go to, thanks to statsdb.com.
We've all learned about this year. Okay, to move on.
Yes.
Your MOP so far. We're in week 9, which isn't actually halfway through the season. It would be nice if it was, but is there? I mean, is it Chad Kelly?
I think it might be Chad Kelly. And I don't even want to be like, oh, I don't want to say it's Chad Kelly. The guy's undefeated. The guy's the quarterback on the undefeated team. That's the guy who gets to be MOP every time. Every time.
It's generally how we do things, right? I will say, and I'm trying to pull up the stat here. I don't think Matthew Betts has had a sack, he's got 10 now.
Yeah.
There's a level where I'm willing to talk about Betts.
Sure, but you're talking about East versus West to start with.
That's true. Yeah.
And it amazes me. It amazes me when we say things like, "Oh, Matthew Betts has 10 sacks." I've had way too many offensive linemen on my podcast over the years to not have adopted the mentality that like Matthew Betts has done his job 10 times in 9 games, like in 7 games.
That's what people used to say about Lemon, and it's not true.
I understand that. But the overall threshold of, Matthew Betts got to the quarterback 10 times. I'd be curious to see pressures. I'd be curious to see how he grades out in that Pro Football Focus stat way. But Matthew Betts, very successful. Chad Kelly gets the ball in his hands every single play and has gone off on every team he's played so far in the CFL.
It's not just, it's the opposite. Like, you ever talk to a DB and they'll be like, oh no, we actually have to be switched on for every play. The receivers generally know if it's coming to them or not. Like if they're doing
It's
the opposite there, right?
It could come to us every time. A receiver knows whether or not it's coming to him.
Exactly.
Every time.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, just there's so long to go. So this is why, I mean, I just, I listen to enough podcasts in other sports. In the CFL, you always get shouted down for talking early about award stuff. But I mean, I think it's an interesting framing device that I like. And it's like in the NBA, I'm talking at the end of December about who's been the best player so far. So that's why I'm doing it. I recognize, like, are we punishing Zach a little bit for being so good the last couple of years? Because like the Bombers have regressed slightly. I think we all agree with that. But I don't know that I've seen Zach Collaros necessarily step back. He's still second in the league behind Jake Mayer in passing yards.
I think Zach is yes. Zach's going to eat a little bit of the idea that he's been the MOP 2 years in a row. And that's just how it's going to go. When
we're going to do
you have to live up to your own standard. And if you've fallen off from your own standard, then where are you? I've eaten a lot of, well, we're not cursing on this show, so make up your own thing.
You can curse. I just don't want to curse.
In the 3-down chat about the standard of the Calgary Stampeders. And they said, has anyone fallen off harder from a ticket standpoint, from a quality on the field, from a win standpoint, excuse me, than the Stamps. And that's a legitimate take right now.
Year over year, is that the argument? That year over year, the Stamps are the ones that have fallen off the
But right now, that the Stampeders, if you look at Grey Cup 2019 or Grey Cup 2018 to now, have from an attendance standpoint and a result standpoint, has any team declined as steadily as the Stampeders have? And I also kind of made up there.
They have further to drop because they were on top, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
the Riders being a mediocre team and now being a slightly worse mediocre team,
right.
I mean, okay, cool. Like the Stamps went from like hypothetically 1 to 6. The Riders went from 4 to 6. So of course the Stampeders mathematically fell further.
No, yeah, I know. It was just an interesting argument.
No, well, the attendance thing is fascinating and is one that I struggle to explain. To be perfectly beyond, like, I don't know why the COVID of it all seems to have disproportionately affected the Stamps. But there does seem to be a slight disconnection between the community and the team.
I don't know that Calgary doesn't have, or Alberta in general, may have a disproportionate number of vaccine denying football fans. And then when they said you have to have the vaccine to go to a game, I don't know how many people canceled their tickets and said they'd never go again, and whether or not that is disproportionate to other markets. I don't know. It's a hunch.
You're just asking questions.
It's a hunch I have. And not even like asking questions in a shitty Tucker Carlson way where I'm trying to get you to think one thing or another. But it is a hunch I have that the Stampeders lost a lot of ticket accounts that weren't replaced when they went with the vaccine mandate like they should have and was correct to do at the time. But how many fans didn't come back because of that in that moment?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's a visibility issue in town. There's a lot of the stadium does obviously contribute. But I can't sit here and I mean I haven't gone back, but I am 2016 when I started in 2017. I certainly would have guessed that on average the Stamps are probably around 27,000. Like that was.
Yeah, I think they've gone from 22 was 2019 down to 14 or 15 now. So they've lost half.
No, I did
third of their attendance in 3 years or something.
That may be season ticket holders. They are averaging
but overall attendance,
yeah, overall attendance, they're averaging like I did the math and I don't have it in front of me, but I did do it for my 10 takeaways, and I believe that they're averaging between 21 and 22,000 so far. They had a SAS game where they had 25. They've only had 3 home games, so this is pretty easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Their season opener was 17, and then they had just under 22 for the Ottawa game. So like that's where they're.
Well, I'm talking about for season ticket holder base, but also in overall attendance. And I mean, I could try and pull it up.
Yeah, I mean, look,
you're right. I think they are falling off. Now, granted, they did have a Grey Cup year in there, and that always gooses the sales for the year because people buy tickets for the year, they get announced for the year so that they could have the access to the Grey Cup ticket, and then it falls off after that. And they had the Grey Cup year in 2019. So you lose the season in 2020. You lose it does end up being an issue, I think, when coming off the Grey Cup hangover, that you can't build on the idea of, hey, you came to the Grey Cup, had a great time. But I think fans from other markets that buy those cheap season tickets certainly are to get a Grey Cup ticket certainly aren't renewing them.
No, I think that's accurate. And I mean, I think it's strange being in the middle of it, as both you and I are.
Right.
Because on the one hand, the decline in Edmonton just means that sort of what's happening with the Stamps, both at the box office as well as sort of, I mean, they're 2-5, as you said, they might be 2-9. We think that they'll probably make the playoffs still, but that all of that is probably flying a little under the radar because the team 3 hours to the north is so much worse.
It is great being the best team in the province.
I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, what a Labor Day Classic we're going to have this year. But I don't think it matters what the records are. I still think Labor Day Classic is going to be
60-57 somehow.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait. And like, it's my favorite day of the year. And if you're some casual fan who inexplicably is listening 50 minutes into a CFL podcast, I strongly suggest you go to the game. But I think alternatively, like I saw Arash Madani tweeted, and I like Arash a lot, so this is not a criticism, but he was like, oh, the Stamps have been a reputation team since 2019, this and that. And I was like, my issue with that is, who has been saying that the Stamps, like, other than like you jokingly, like, we've all been sort of like being like, yeah, the Stamps aren't quite what they were. Like, we've all acknowledged that. There's no like, like they've made the playoffs. They've been the second or third best team in the division every year, but I don't think any of us have been stating that they're any better than that.
No, I don't think that anybody has.
No, so
I
it's
don't
like
think
what
that anybody's looked at this team and said absolute world beaters.
No, and what I don't know is, I mean, I think that there are a lot of fans, and this is sort of faded because, I mean, who else other than us are going to be talking about it? But there were questions this year about the offseason. Now, no matter what, the Stamps could not have signed Fuller or Malade, like re-signed him without literally like breaking every CFL salary cap rule. The Argos had more money because Chad Kelly is getting paid rookie contract money. Like their quarterback, they just had more money because of that. So they went out and made him the highest paid defensive end in the league. And then they brought in James Waters. Like they brought in Hauser. They let Lemon walk. But I think that there's a sense that this is the year where fans were like, we don't care about the continuity at all. And I will in particular say that I think that like the not re-signing Jameer Thurman, I've spoken with fans who are annoyed about that. Who really don't, who believe that continuity matters year over year, and especially a guy who is clearly a leader. I mean, if anyone go back, I requested Bo. We had a scrum with him at the end of last year before his last home game, and Jameer walked out and wouldn't allow Bo to be cool. Like he made a big deal and like just showed up and talked about how much Bo mattered to him as his quarterback, and like it was emotional, and it was like that's leadership where he knew Bo couldn't bring the attention on himself, so we put the attention. That stuff matters. And I do think that there's a sense that you look and you see Toronto as the best team in the league, and you see their roster populated with former Stamps. And it's like, well, why can't we keep these guys? And I think that has hit the fan base a little bit.
I think when
Mike,
my understanding of the Vaughters situation and Thurman was that Vaughters got the money Thurman could have got, and that they chose Vaughters over Thurman essentially 1 for 1, because Lemon was not making real money last year. Lemon was making, less than they probably would have brought in Hauser for. Lemon was making no money, but Thurman was doing well in that linebacker position, and I think they decided that a guy like Silas Stewart was probably more easily able to step in and see a drop off from Thurman to Stewart. And now we've got Thurman to Awe. And is there a substantial drop off on the field from Thurman to Awe? Not really. I think they knew they were losing Oramolade. And so they brought in Vaughters and spent the money on Vaughters as a guy that was ready to step in.
And Vaughters had 5 sacks in 6 games. Vaughters was good through his before getting hurt.
Vaughters was good before he got hurt. So I think that's where the money got spent on the defense was trying to find a replacement for Oramolade, which ended up being Vaughters. And Sean Lemon was never going to sign here for what he probably ended up signing for in Montreal. And again, because the CFL is so great with releasing information, I have to do that all on speculation. I have no idea what Sean Lemon's making. Maybe Sean Lemon signed a prorated $600,000 contract. I can't tell you because I don't know, because the information's not public like it is in every other major sports league in the world where all of the salaries are public all the time. But that's a totally different rant and rave.
You're 100% right on that.
It would mean I could look at the players in Toronto and go, oh, well, that's why we don't have them. Yeah. We don't have them because they're making so much more money, and because this is where they're saving money, because they've got all these younger rookies that they weren't paying anything. And it's great that they've got all these former Stamps that are doing damage around the league, but they're paying those guys massive money, but they're not paying everybody else, and they're just getting results from those guys. Is that something that you know.
And from a team building perspective, at the end of every year, we say the team with the best O-line and the best D-line
Right.
typically is the one that wins. The Stamps have an incredibly expensive offensive line, particularly the interior, and you know they're paying their D-line. So like I have no fault with it. And the whole Vaughters Thurman thing, I've sort of heard that as a rumor, but I can't substantiate it as a reporter, obviously, like officially.
Right.
But I mean, there's some logic to it. That's the way it certainly sounds. And look, there are just parts of me where, as we said, like you go through and you get lost in the weeds a little bit. The fact is, like, I do think that it's a lot of it is just execution with these Stampeders right now.
Yeah,
that's what we're waiting for, and
they need a win. They need a win in a way that will carry over from week to week.
Well, and my thing is, I thought that the win against the Riders a couple weeks ago was, and then it just got they couldn't beat the Red Blacks, even though they should have won that game, and then that momentum carried into a pretty rough Alouettes game where, again, the difference was it's not as simple as this, but I'm not a football coach, so I'm not trying to break this down. Look, man, there's a pick six. That was like literally the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Like
the defense allowed 0 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And the offense scored 0 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Those two things together are what's going to do it for you.
Can I keep you for 3 more minutes because I've kept you longer than I said I don't actually know that I try to do this thing where I just look ahead at the rest of the week.
All right.
Normally I'm like, okay, what's your game of the week? But the game of the week is clearly Lions Bombers. So just rank for me in order of interest. Lions Bombers on Thursday night. We're not going to include Toronto Calgary here because we've spent that much time. You have on Saturday, Montreal Hamilton. And then on Sunday, Ottawa Saskatchewan. Rank in order of number 1 to number 3. What's the most interesting to you?
Okay, so for me as a Stampeders fan, the Lions Bombers game is last.
Because you're not catching other teams.
Great game. I think that's going to be a great game, but that game doesn't matter to the Stampeders as far as the standings are concerned. That game doesn't matter.
Yep.
You need Ottawa. You need Ottawa to beat the Riders. So I'm very interested in that game because that's the team we're immediately chasing for a playoff spot as a Stamps fan. And you need Hamilton to lose as well to all this crossover nonsense that everybody's been talking about. So those two games are games I'm more interested in as a Stamps fan because I need to have the standings implications of those two games.
Just imagine everything is playing out exactly as it is. Like exactly as it is. So like there's a possibility of, Hamilton being the team that's trying to get the crossover. And we are mid-October and the friggin' CFL schedule makers did their job properly. And the Ticats are coming with Bo Levi Mitchell to Calgary with the crossover on the line. How much fun would that be? And how are we not getting that?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't believe I am, the CFL schedule was released before Bo signed.
I know.
So everyone's heaping on the CFL schedule makers, but it was done already.
It's a 9-team league. Every team should play home and away against every other team. It's not that complicated.
Well, yes. You should be playing home and away against every other team. That's absolutely true. I think you reserve your Labor Day matchup for an extra game. You put your Labor Day rivalries in, and you have that extra game. And there's one team that's obviously not going to be included in that. And, I don't know who. I mean, for me, that's probably Ottawa. That's not included in the Labor Day.
Why not do?
I mean, you've got 3 that matter. You've got 3 that matter. 3 Labor Day games that matter, and the other one never does.
Yeah, obviously Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Sask, and then Toronto, Hamilton. I don't know. Like I don't mind.
I was gonna say BC, Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton. What's that? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, of course. But those are the 3 Labor Day matchups that matter. I think that's where you schedule your other game. You put in that rivalry game, you put in that rivalry week. But yes, home and away is the one that makes most sense. It also makes the most sense, quite frankly, to go to one division, but they're not going to do that anytime soon either. Go to one division, have the best 6 teams make the playoffs, and your top 2 teams, no matter what conference they're from, get a bye. But that's not going to happen either. Speaking of things that shouldn't happen, here, you can mull this one over and we'll talk about it the next time. The Elks should fire everyone and pay the salary cap penalty and forfeit 3 draft picks just to get rid of everybody in the front office. Fire the whole coaching staff.
I said this on Sunday. No, the CFL should just be like, cool, we're looking the other way only for the Elks.
No,
the
wrong.
staff,
Wrong.
Yes,
the
that
CFL
is the solution.
The CFL needs to hold them to it, but the Elks, for their fan base, should come out and say, we fired everybody. We're starting over, and we're going to forfeit 3 draft picks in this draft to show how serious we are about getting the right coaching staff and the right people in place. And it cost us an extra $350,000 in fines because that's the maximum fine that you can pay. You pay $100,000 for dollar on the first $100,000, and you pay a maximum of $250 for everything after that. You dump everything in, you get rid of them all, you forfeit 3 draft picks, and you blow it up to show the fans that you actually give a shit about blowing it up and making it right, and you care about winning that much. And that's in my opinion what they should be doing in Edmonton. Take the fines, forfeit some draft picks, and blow it up. These are COVID college kids anyway. They're not going to be as good as the rest of them are in 2 years anyway. This is the time to forfeit draft picks. I think they should do so.
You know what? Ryan Ballantine. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I it wouldn't make me mad. I have not heard of many CFL owners being like super hyped about spending $350,000 on anything.
They're not owners, they're a board. It's a community team. You do that, and you bring back fans into the building that are leaving in droves because of what Chris Jones has done to this team.
I told you about Fraser and Fig. Ryan, I'm gonna do my ad read once I let you go, but I am gonna let you go. I find it fascinating. I don't have enough of a thought on it. Just super like.
I said, you let that percolate. You let that percolate, and by the end of the season, you'll agree with me.
I hope so, man. Thank you so much for your time. This is the best. This is the best. I will be seeing you at the game Friday, I assume.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
With bells on.
I can't wait, and super appreciate you. It's such a weird week. Like the fact that tomorrow we're getting depth charts released tomorrow morning is like, all right.
Yeah, it seems soon.
Yep. Too soon. But honestly, as I said, it's a short week for the Stamps, and honestly, it's not that much longer of a week for the Argos. So there's no advantage here. So
true, and they don't have to come from Newfoundland.
No, it's true. I mean, either did the Argos. They came from Nova Scotia, but
Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Newfoundland's the time zone that's half an hour ahead. That's all I know.
Ryan, thank you so much, man. I'll let you go here. Take care.
Pleasure as always. Talk soon.
All right, that was Ryan Ballantine. Gonna really quickly just talk about Fraser and Fig because I love Fraser and Fig. They are our longtime sponsor here at Live from the 55. They're here in Marteloup, our neighbor here in Calgary. They do delicious elevated cheese and charcuterie. Got fresh artisanal provisions, on-demand grazing for pickup and delivery. So I said, honestly, man, like these guys, charcuterie, cheese, everything you want. Like honestly, you can have it as a snack. You can bring it, make an occasion of it. Fraser and Fig is the best. I have brought it to a picnic. There are many plans for myself, Cami Kepke, and Busby, John Bender. They all love Fraser and Fig, and we're all going to eat it here. And you guys are going to see. Call them up. You order it. They get it ready for you. It doesn't take long. They've got 4 sizes. They suit every occasion. All their boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, carrots, and their selections vary month to month. So honestly, just because you've had one doesn't mean you've had them all. I don't know. I just can't recommend Fraser and Fig enough. We are super grateful. They have an amazing product, and honestly, I have recently had someone very dear to me tell me that they had ordered Fraser and Fig because they heard it on the podcast, and that means a lot. Thank you guys for doing that. Try them out. They honestly will elevate whatever you are doing, whether it's a picnic, it's a date, it's a dinner party, whatever it is. Fraser and Fig, they are the best. Thank you to Fraser and Fig. With that said, there you go. We're kind of wrapping up here. fun week 9 ahead. You got Lions, Bombers Thursday night. Can't wait for that one. Argos, Stampeders here in Calgary. Alouettes, Ticats, and then Red Blacks and Riders. So lots going on. Gonna be a big week. I don't know. This Lions Bombers game. Can't wait for that one. I have a feeling the Bombers are gonna come out looking for revenge. They're gonna want to make a statement. And that is gonna be super fun. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You're live from the 55. I'm Danny Austin. That was Ryan Ballantine. Honestly, we're so grateful to have Mugs Pub on as a sponsor. Do check them out, 1330 15th Avenue Southwest. As I said, their pizza, incredible. But they got lots of beer, lots of wine, lots of cocktails. Anything you can ask for from a pub. Perfect place to watch the game. Potentially that Bombers-Lions game. Or if for some reason you're not coming to the Stamps Argos, go to Mugs Pub and check it out. But super thankful to them as well as Fraser and Fig. Guys, this has been live from 55. Thank you so much.